up a little bit. Thanks for being here, and thanks to Bonnie and Northeast for being an advocate for really local, regional, and national literature. So it's a good thing. This is a big crowd. Thanks again for being here, and I look forward to hearing JV read. Another regional advocate, well, regional like he lives here, another advocate for poetry, and it occurred to me that I've sat on JV's porch before, and I've read his book, and I've seen him read on YouTube, I admit, but I've never seen him read in person, so I think that my guess is that that's the best way to encounter his poems, is to, he's shaking no.
Better on YouTube.
Better on YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you know what's happening after this reading. But my guess is that this is the best way to hear his poems is in person. So I look forward to finding out. I'm going to start with some new poems, and keep this at about 20-25 minutes. Is what I'm thinking. So this is a new poem called Pumpkin Ore. Imagine an ambulance coming for you. Goodbye, awkward mascot. You touched your hair too much. Sports fans accept the loss forever. There's zippity-doo-dah, and there's the blues. 1. Pumpkin and watermelon are often mixed up until they start growing a pumpkin or watermelon. A 911 operator in Kansas is telling a teen not to whine. She is past the age where she would swallow a penny. 2. In a garden, they practice pulling wounded Marines out of harm's way. You are wearing massive headphones. A well-reasoned yellow lab specializes in finding explosives and is fed up. These eggs are getting cold, which slows what eating alone looks like. There is no call for help plagiarizing your mother. 3. With your reasons and details, you can draft a thesis sentence. This is a great salad pumpkin. This is the postcard that I would send. The bologna sandwiches were terrible. The dog does not have lion's blood, except lost forever. 4. So someone offers you more than the value of your car, and you are having a fantasy. Dear Senator, starch to sugar, slavery is never an analogy. The dog absolutely lunges forward. This is the stick used in the crime. Please help people concentrate better. A mechanic talks to us about having problems down the road. Senator, your mother and I love you very much. The city didn't change us. I have eaten the pancakes that you sent in the mail, driving the Subaru so slow and so cold through the garden, and I am still looking out the window. War was never an appropriate metaphor. You might find life on an island different. You know, the ocean. 5. There is a well above an aquifer in Nebraska. This list is practically endless. A domestic goose chase, which is formative. For example, the Swedes are everywhere in popular culture. 47 Senate Republicans send a school letterman instead. I hold out for Stockholm, Sweden complete, or a trip down the Platte River with teachers. 6. What have I become, my Swedish friend? A trip down the Platte River with toddlers. My recipe for faux caviar is basically buckshot and a wet rat nest, and I've done it in a beautiful way. There is a sweet spot right behind Groundhog's Day and between Valentine's Day, but that is not where we're from. Do not be like your dad. 7. Mystics, I give it all up. It's not like this guy is lost in the desert. My son is washing the family Prius, which takes play out of children's hands. Someone in Kansas is missing a set of bicycle pedals, and every night one pair of pedals goes missing to replace someone else's stolen bicycle pedals. We can end this entire sequence by sending a pair of bicycle pedals to Kansas. But if it takes love, I'm willing to show you which ones are the elderberries, and if it comes to that, that dead bat smell was only some urine in the garden. So that's one. Thanks. Feel free to clap at the end, or you know, whenever you want. It's your house. One more new poem. That was kind of a warm-up, and it occurs to me there's a few poets in the room that have heard these first two poems. You're the only ones. You know who I'm talking about. This is called The Consequence of Things. A great snake depends upon your private acts today. Our reading is mediocre. 5 digits describe a landscape. On what smaller farms remain, one side is not told. 5 tons of food from 1 acre of land, and we knew the baby was sick. Stuffing the field with scarecrows after a long night of polluting and stargazing. So this is life outside of schools. Our task today is to find and display all of the available wildflowers. The soul is not diverse from things, and God is not a consequence of things. The sand will come, as it always has, to wash away. The moon will rise to the superstitions and leave the economy. What's the nature of this movement? We haven't managed to take care of anything. A devastating building collapses in the desert. He has to haul the stones by hand. It is the beginning of a truck commercial. You find him drunk, you drive him home. You were reminded of something you didn't know existed. It's not how I would talk to God. In a field of corn, no longer in need of a fence, I would start a fire. I would trim a stake. For you in the sun, a tiny little violence would be hidden in the end of it. And then, thanks. And then this book just came out a month ago, so I haven't held it in public ever until now. So this is fun. I'm going to try to read poems that I haven't read in public in this area, mostly. Some books for sale. I have 2 books for sale, and JB has a whole mountain of books for sale. So come take a look afterwards. This book is called New City, and it's so not about me, even though people say it is. And for example, I want to start with this sequence called Nebraska Family Tree, which spans 5 generations in Nebraska, and it isn't my family, but that doesn't matter. So we'll take you through a family tree from Nebraska Family Tree. 1. Jed looks like clip art. There is no father. There is a lake that surges with antibiotics, and 50 new homes brings the population to roughly 60. Works of the State Patrol where he tests envelopes, is poor in groups, neat and rodent in appearance, a candlelight kind of life. And thanks. And then to 6. They're all numbered. I'm skipping some generations. 6. Josh watched a water possum get eaten by ants. Remembers locations and dates by encounters with critters. He hit a buzzard with an onion from a billion yards. Vest, leather, a cougar is searching for fiber. This place is where the eagle will eat a snake to give messages to men. These are pretty short, so whatever you want to do, but you can hold your pause if you want until I blast through this sequence. 7. Lance. Lance always had an open sore. Grew up with horse farming and sugar diabetes. Strict, and you better measure up. From what others have said or would have said, a huge stupid ego was drafted into service. One of the most overused words in horse training and traveling is goddamn. This indicates it was not an experiment shaped like a cowboy. It said it was meant to be a trip to be forgotten in our lifetime. 10. Partner. Partner's house was rubber and pork. Nervous of people's intentions and the hooey overshooting social rodents. Very scared by the world and what they might think of him. 11 through 18, very little is known about the family, as everything is to be left alone and not talked about. Some of these quite possibly are buried at the home place with no markers or stones. 20. We count the ways a group can end. Guy searched for a sack of money all his life. Loved nature, meat, and dinner. A steady private income from his mule train. Can I use this as an example? A couple of puppets living softly. Pain, or even elation, it exists in layers, and the meat, the most brutal at the top, obscures the pain beneath. So this is your invitation to the autopsy competition. And thanks. That's kind of the first part of the book, that's the Nebraska family tree, and then we go to the section called New City, and this is a numbered, if you can imagine that, a numbered series of poems, and the first one is called New City. After the old stuff, we come to New City. A cardinal amid scandal is said to leave. We shave funny places. The city council has a ban on sports metaphors for sexual aggression. Think about that. How do we talk about our relationships? We say we score and get to third base, and these are sports metaphors. And you know, in sports you have a winner and a loser, and I don't know if that's how we need to be talking about our loved ones. The city council has a ban on sports metaphors for sexual aggression. The people drove Monsanto out because they didn't help. Tree number 854 has a fungus. Let's loop our rope over a natural crotch. Don't be lonely in a new city. New City 2, definitely do not dally. The new rule on the bus is no defecating. You tune out spots. You're not sure whose house is where. Wait and see and have a good one. You're going to pop out. You will pick up the path. You wake up the motel. We have a cause. It's as important as getting to the moon. Deregulators look the other way. Now you are standing over the bus driver. You thank her. You thank her. Thanks. New City 8, which will be my last of the New City series. You meet sweet marlin on the beach, because it's a new city. Why is it difficult to say something? A bird of plastic bags will land in front of your shotgun. You told a joke, a little extra punch. This is your raccoon speaking. Listen, Marlin, war is never an appropriate word for the public's desire. Who would win in a fight, a shark or a tiger, a bike or a car, etc.? Yes, I guess it depends on where it takes place. This is your captain speaking. There will be no World Cup until everyone involved helps build one house. Any Husker fans? No, there's one. It's okay. I mean, I could give or take football. I don't have a problem with it, but I do, when I see it, I think, Man, that's a lot of people in a room, and let's all take 10 minutes and 200,000 people can build a house, and then we'll get to the game, you know, if we like did something. But I don't know, we have a pretty good room here, and I'm just reading a book, so. But hopefully we can work on our imaginations, and that's something that can save the world. This is called Dick Cheney Parade. I know when you're pretending not to look. A cheerleader with no real heart is spooking the horses. Light rail stops. Your other half is in the emergency. The nurses are out smoking and checking their messages. In the new city, not over at that building. Or that building, the nursing building. In the new city, the nurses are out smoking and checking their messages. They may mock your attachment to touchstones. In terms of high school, to be a senior. What did all those kung fu movies do to you? A brain trained on wildly changing colors will find it hard to focus on a teacher. By any means you cut her mic, you need to show them you have a heart. Thanks. So this is a pair of poems that kind of speak to each other. First one is called Cause and Effect in a Prison, and it's got pumpkins like my first pumpkin poem. Cause and Effect in a Prison. To sell pumpkins, it helps to shoot some out of a cannon. Have you ever tried to put a field back into corn? Abraham Lincoln said that the Civil War was about loneliness, but it wasn't about loneliness. In his letter to Horace Greeley, read that. He said some things that I don't know if he believes. We should citizens arrest each other for wandering so far from the graves of our ancestors. In many other countries, that's impossible to do. The holding room was a hellhole. It was a box to fill. I changed my belt buckle. Why should I mourn? The noise upstairs subsides. I spend the afternoon deciding what to plant. And then the point where is the complimentary poem. The point where we can't have this dry farm. A dry, ultralight beer and a glass full of dust. I play country when I'm losing control. One sad story may be that these chickens grow so large and become so heavy that their legs can no longer support their weight. No positive, vivid memories. I was at that point where it's about giving you the love we can't control and what people think that was. Maybe one day you will swim, oh my sweetest friend, like bone fragments of John the Baptist have been found here. Thanks. And then I'm going to read two more complimentary poems that have kind of numbered sequences. And the first one is called Recipe for a Turkey Sandwich. 1. A kid lays out rules for chickens. This is not Switzerland. There is a jail where games are played with stakes of corn and common mud. Come sail your ships. She explains that this is Boomtown, petting them gently in the kidneys. 2. I mentioned again computer-designed drugs. Two atoms are joined by a double bond. Sheep and cows will naturally produce that tiny bond, but it's very unhappy if the bind is straight around the double bond. 3. You could take a bunch of mud and mash up all the DNA in it, and read its sequence, and you discover an astonishing diversity of genes that belong to those microbes, thousands in a single spoon of soil. We've gotten so good at understanding molecules at the bacterial level that if we change the way an antibiotic will bind on the surface of a bacteria, we can turn sweat back into snow. 4. Outside, it's dinosaur weather. Topics at the martini lunch include freedom. The Independent Order of Oddfellows talk about how hard holidays are on diabetes. Some potheads say they don't dream, and there is little preparation in America for such a difficult scalloped potato. In Mexico, they're jumping off the train that goes to Lucky Town, and crows are using tools. While I write to you, Enrique, over and over, using the same letters, I am saying wonderful things. Thanks. 5. Guy Clark gets up to play a song at Townes Van Zant's funeral. He says, I booked this gig 37 years ago. 6. Boys Without Arms, what is love not? Many migrants who lose limbs to the train end up back in Tapachula. So that poem and this next one, Citizenship, are the idea that got me going was this book, Enrique's Journey. Everyone heard of that book? It's by Sonia Nazario. And it's this nonfiction account of this kid, Enrique. He's like 9 years old, and he is from Honduras in Central America, and his mother is living and working in the United States. So this kid takes the journey to his mom, and I taught that book many years ago, not here, and somewhere else I taught that book, and some students said, what's the point? It's just some kid traveling. And I said, maybe the point is that Enrique represents a larger group. And so if you're going to go by land from Honduras to the United States, you have to go through Mexico. And it can be a violent trip for some of those migrants. So this next poem is a complementary poem to what I just read. It's called Citizenship. The last thing I'll say is I moved to Mexico 3 times in my adult life. And one thing I learned is we can't often understand the choices that other people make. We just don't often have the ability to understand other people's choices, especially when those people have less power than we might. So this is called Citizenship. 1. There are people who cannot chew or swallow a slaughtered animal or anything close to being an angel. 2. Enrique has seen smugglers ask migrants to grab hold of a long rope. Others lack arms and form a human chain based on the quality of a person's response to membership in a community. 3. We blame the coach for being junk and the team for sucking. 4 men drink. The battle is cake. Boy Scouts of America get into an argument that cannot rely on facts to make its case. 4. What color would hot tamales be before they dyed them red? 5. There are things machines teach us, that things get hot or glow red, some of the most common things. While I am trying to find the strongest drugs, people do care about each other. 6. The year is not half over. There is a serrated knife someone has hidden inside a statue. The reasons we go to war always matter. The mechanics are working backwards. So many migrants are making the attempt. More than 5,000 Chapachula residents marching the streets demand that Mexico establish a death sentence for its gangsters. And so as not to end on a heavy note, I'm going to read a pair of sonnets to finish us off. And since there are a few teachers and a few students in the room, this is a sonnet, loose homages to the sonnet is a good phrase, sort of experimental sonnets called Nebraska Fantastic is the sonnet sequence. Nebraska Fantastic, sort of a otherworldly classroom idea, not my classroom. This is the first time a faux hawk gets used. I have my night class draft homestead axe. Jed does a flood control project, and Clown of Vaseline has chapped lips for years. There is pea flying into a pail and the grain stinks. I put some heartburn into my soft water. I say, students, did you know this sock used to be puppets? Tomorrow, I will do a pun. The daylight is coming quickly on. And then the last poem is another sonnet from this sequence. It's called, I Won't Go to Work Today, I Won't Go to Work. During the commercial for drinking coffee with Ronald Reagan, we brush our teeth in the river with 100 neighbors. My trousers are just butterflies. Your legs look long, like long eggs. Fresh cut grass. Something lucky follows, and when you look into his whipping cream eyes, they sell a lot of coffee. You just cannot bomb mud. There is work to do. Wake up now. Thank you.
He's back. An encore.
Psych.
And we'll bring that back down again now. All right, thank you very much, Scott. And our next reader, J.V. Brummels, J.V. Yeah. His fifth full-length collection, City at War, was published by the Backwaters Press in late 2009. His work has been recognized with the Literature Fellowship from the National Endowment of the Arts, the Elkhorn Prize, and the Mildred Bennett Award for contributions to the state's literature from the Nebraska Center for the Book. His book of Grass was awarded the 2008 Nebraska Book Award for Poetry. Raised first on a farm and later on a ranch, he was educated at the University of Nebraska and later Syracuse University. In 1984, he and his family began a horseback cattle outfit to raise natural grass-fed beef, which is delicious, by the way,
Thank you.
which they continue to operate as Lightning Creek Cattle Company. A longtime professor at Wayne State College, home of the longest-running poetry slam west of Chicago, he's also written and published short fiction and a novel. For the last 20 years, he served as publisher of Logan House, co-funded with Jim Reese, which specializes in contemporary American poetry. In 2006, he was named co-director of the newly created WSC Press. Please help me welcome J.V. Brummels.
All right, once I open my mouth, I have to keep talking, see, so just kind of waiting there for a second to see if I had the nerve to go through with this. Thanks, Scott. I enjoyed those poems tremendously. One thing about Scott's poems is every time I think I know where they're going, he surprises me, and I had no idea where those poems were going. And thanks, Bonnie, for having me here, and thanks for using the Book of Grass. I've been looking forward to this. You know, this book's got some years on it. I suppose it's, 8 years old now, and I hadn't really paid much attention to it lately, you know, different stuff, new stuff, whatever. And so earlier today I was thinking about reading here and sort of like rediscovering some old friends maybe by looking at these poems. First one's called Grass Widow. Isn't meth a wonderful drug? Right, works for everybody, doesn't it? You know, I don't think there's any downside to it at all that I've heard about. This is kind of a meth poem. Friends of mine were, they'd moved, they were out in Montana, they're in Wyoming and moving to Montana, and their daughter had to go to court because, and they had called me to ask if I would go there to sort of, I don't know, stand witness, perhaps? One of the things, too, I think, just one more thing about this poem before I do start it. I don't know, I don't think we're particularly good about remembering history. And this is a poem that falls back into history. Grass Widow. After a cool, dry spring, the sun finds a notch in the ozone and burns through a lens of humidity. Every pickup fishtails at every gravel corner. Every driver knows the days are endless, but the season of getting it all done finite. We adjust, change to fit the weather, the way over time an open wound becomes a washed out trace of scar. And by the time the dry south wind is high in the heavy heads of the cottonwoods and my lip has shed its sunburned scab, I may be ready to tell the story I've tried to say so many times. Maybe I've got my lip back. And maybe all I can do is shuffle the pieces and hold each shard up to hot sunlight, hoping for some vibration of recognition, some whispered part of the whole truth. A day this spring, I drive south across 2 counties, the wet paint splatter of drizzle on the 4-lane enough to idle the chemical rigs in miles of fields. Earth no longer turned, simply sterilized for a new crop no one wants. To a courthouse, monumental above the fast food arches, and cars lined up for coffee and some egg and pig meat sandwiches, maybe some flash-fried potatoes. Past deputies and metal detectors, the new terrific security, to stand beside this young mother at her arraignment. Her men are gone, the first to a new woman north of the river, the next to the place junkies go in lieu of jail. What's behind it all? Some handy farm or household chemicals distilled and needled to the blood. I witness her sign away her children. The hanging judge harangues. The silent reporter keeps it all in shorthand. The marshal clasps his hands behind his back. The present carries the weight of the past like a heavy pistol high on the hip. Back years, in the day of zero tolerance and just say no, thank you. I hold this woman, a girl no bigger than a whisper, on my lap while hand joins hand as the joint is passed around the kitchen table. Back years again, WPA workers finish pouring the counted tons of concrete on this courthouse, paint the halls and offices, scatter ashtrays and spittoons around the courtroom where they'll be handy for snuff dippers like me. And again, just a meeting of 2 rivers, some planked shacks on a mud street, prostitutes waving from spindly balconies, grass waving from the treeless hills above. And somewhere, anchored on that green sea, a young mother waits at a table in a soddy, dust sifting on her the fine-haired heads of her toddling children, for a husband gone after gold or the herds, his distant death by drowning or bad horse or lightning bolt, bad news the wind is whispering. Thanks. As Bonnie mentioned, yes, if you're in the market for grass, actually this year's crop's all gone. Next year, if you're in the market for some grass-fed beef, give me a call. We'll set you up. My partner, I've got a couple partners in this operation, and one of them's a guy named Toby. We've been working together for a long time, and this is a poem from quite a while ago that is about a day we spent. And again, it's a poem about history. I mean, you know, 140 years ago, this entire country got remade, and it's been remade again in the last 40 years, so that it really isn't, you know, if you're hanging around here in 1968 and you were suddenly transported today, this would not look much like it did then. So it keeps transforming. But you can look around and there are remnants of the way life used to be. Long shadows. All day my partner and I go around this new parcel of the heifer's winter range, dragging brittle barbed wire out from under years of fence-lined grass to tack to broken post, resting after every stretch, holding our breath when we turn back to see if the spells we use to resurrect this ghost will last, can contain this season the high bench of corn stalks and sheltering trees bunched on the morning slope, the thick rope of cattail-choked willows thrown slack along the draws that head Sand Creek. 40 years ago, this was farm, a picture book range of barnyard stock, a brood of children my partner calls to mind through the day, how all the neighbor kids tore up the upstairs during card parties, how they visited back and forth, the gravel of the road, the dust of the lane, scuffing their brass-eyed lace-up boots. How the old man and my partner's great-granddad teamed up, traded work, neighbored, set these boundary fences, clam-shelled post holes, planted fresh-cut post, unspooled silver wire over the end gate as the team leaned into the collars, jingled bits and creaking leather, a song with the meadowlark's post-top trill, the thick whistle of the thermal-riding chicken hawk, the coaxing grunts and curses of the teamster. This day, it's late October, a season we'll recall as clear-skied and milk-mild. By late afternoon, we've had enough for one day. We sit on the tailgate of the pickup for a smoke. The sun settling on the bench at our back throws shadows of stumble-bum buildings, racked cow lot fences, and haywire machines far out before us toward tomorrow morning's sun. Do we know anything that the old ones didn't? Even that every enterprise carries the seed of its dying. Could they guess that only these few generations of busted sod would grow cattails this high in a muck of topsoil washed down from hilltop? That while the cattails climbed the draws, neighbors and the neighbors' children would flood the downstream towns and cities? That the shorthorn cows and Hampshire hogs and banties, leghorns, turkeys and geese and sheep would all be carried away as if by great water? Another day of fence repair lies before us. Then it's just a matter of finding a cowboy or two to help drive the heifers over the ridge that divides this watershed from the next. A meadowlark vies for our attention. Our shadows stretch darker and farther, while my partner talks still of the old ones who built this crib or that shed, how they walked cattle from place to place in the days, he said, before we had horses. Thanks. Y'all ought to go meet Toby. He lives north of Pilgrim. Just stop in, knock on his door, tell him I said you ought to stop, and, you know, he's a lot of fun. Very bright man, very perceptive, very old school, very old school. It's called Shutting Out the Lights. There's like a biblical quote, because, you know, I read the Bible regularly and this stood out to me. Sufficient to the day the evil thereof. Actually, I don't even know if that comes from the Bible. I just love the idea of the sufficient to the day, the evil thereof. That is, I am not worried about tomorrow's crap. I'm going to worry about today's stuff today, and tomorrow will take care of itself. I don't have many principles, but that's one of them. All right. With no 9-to-5 life to fret me, only another winter highballing nearer worries my tenured soul, and a day crossing T's and dotting I's is wasted subtraction from that distance. The computer's lazy, time-killing graphic beckons like a curling finger, an invitation to start this note to you. I find the remote for the muted TV and VCR that everyone else turns only on. I hit a switch and a modern kitchen goes on standby. The microwave's digital display winks at me. Lights left burning across the ranch won't keep the wolf of weather from nosing around the door. In the corrals, the horses bury long faces in alfalfa up to their intelligent eyes. I stand stupid in the barn door, my hand on the light switch's busted casing. Summers Miller lies dead on the floor. Last month's hard frost snuffed out all bugs, but this one fly buzzing the specked bulb. Hundreds of pelicans buzzed yellowbanks last month. I've yet to hear a crane or see a goose, but they're free to travel when weather or impulse moves them. I hear the pulse of the electric fencer, the hum and gurgle of the ancient fridge. All this juice, abstracted from world and weather, channeled and dammed, wait on my brain's half-hearted electricity to spark across a synapse. I shut out the light. The moon above my head is the light bulb of an idea. I am what America dreamt, rich and free to turn a key or saddle a horse and travel where weather or impulse moves me, bound only to ride the earth as it cranks down another notch towards solstice. I can't believe how full of it I am. The other half of truth grates. Snow on winter wind will drift stiff as styrofoam. I'll channel my puny energy to the care of an equine, bovine, and human family. The precise stacks of hay bales will dwindle. One by one, I shut out the lights in the rooms of my head, double-checking the attic and gazing long into the cellar. Only that little nightlight that comes on when we first glimpse our mortality burns. I cross the moonlit yard, my bones jutting within my flesh, like lightning or a heavy squall. My boots crawl in the cold dirt. My shadow marches ahead, moonglow through the skull. Thank you. Against all reason, I like Amtrak. I like to travel by train. It doesn't make a bit of sense. The last time second to last time I traveled by Amtrak, the train was 7 hours late. I mean, they're terrible. I mean, you just can't, which I think is one of the reasons I really like Amtrak. You just give up any sense of control and timing. You will be there when the train gets you there. If you're waiting for the train, well, you will wait until the train gets there. I don't know if that's actually got anything to do with this poem. Except that, yeah, I'm traveling in part by train. I've been to Elko, Nevada a few times, which is the home of the National Cowboy Poetry Gathering. And if you want to see some well-dressed cowboys, check that place out. Last week of January every year. It's a big party. And there's some well-dressed cowboys. So I think that's kind of what this poem is about. It comes out of a trip to Elko. Gypsy Road. I'm walking in desert rain toward downtown casino lights, new boots wet enough to conform, wondering how I got this far, by car and cab and train and by dumb luck. And momentum begun half a century ago when first I rolled off my diapered butt and humped my way across kitchen linoleum to some shining toy and window light. This traveling is my own fault, a self-assigned lesson to find where in the journey the adventure is. The taxi's headlights plowing furrows and flurries of snow, the wide womb of this back seat, a last few blocks before I am delivered full term to the depot, and this cabbie who too is a writer and a poet of horror stories and poems told by aborted fetuses, which is pretty much a horror story in itself. The train with its oddball passengers, too snooty or fearful to fly, the Chicago stewards and the new wave of hippies, the German couple in their brand new cowboy outfits. The cradle sway on the rails rocks me, my hand in my pocket, in my pocket, my lucky silver dollar. The country I couldn't watch with eyes fixed above the arc of wheel shines just past my reach. Thanks again. Slant of light. This is kind of made up in that I've never sat on. There's a bucking horse in there, and I'm pretending for the sake of the poem that I'm actually getting it ridden. Not so much on that. I'm good for a couple, 3, maybe something like that. When this poem goes on longer, like I show up like a real cowboy here. It's fiction. Slant of Light, which you may remember you may have run into. It's beginning of an Emily Dickinson poem. There's a certain slant of light on winter afternoons that oppresses with the heft of cathedral tunes. When the day's push of west wind gasp, then cyclones around, this big bronc sets to spinning between north and south and north. And if my failing sight stretched from the heights of this perch, I could swing the loop of my eye 100 miles to either interstate. Those running slabs, volcanic flow, smoothed and channeled to carry a heavy world of steel, the closest distance between point and pointless. And if this bronc and wind don't settle soon, I'll leave this saddle, this tan skin of cow stretched over rawhide stretched and shrunk over a tree of what all trees are, and land on earth that gives and gives but won't give much more than concrete to the falling timber of this brittle body. These Los hills hold no rocks to crack a skull, nor scratch a pictograph to record this or any history, nor rare earths for trolls to scrabble out from beneath the grassroot hide, nor press of the long dead into oil or coal. And if we melt down here and are not found, we will be survived only by buttons and a half-dozen brass conchos. But if these shafts flap, the wind turns and the bronc blows even harder, I might fly away and save my skin, since skin is what I care for, my own and the second skin that I cover with my skin when I get lucky. And the grass of earth cattle skin off each time the earth loops around the sun, the way I'm spinning from west to east to west, so that in the long light breaking beneath the skyline clouds, I spin from sundown to sunrise to sundown, each quick day an aging, until I grow long in tooth and the straight line of my spine curves like a question within a cloud of fine hoof-raised dust. Rising day and falling night, this bronc and I cut and recut the turning light in our three-dimensional shapes, this way and that and back, tie hard and fast to the wind long as we blow. No matter our other sins, I know that pounding hoof nor falling man will leave no worse than they have lived, light on the land. Thank you. Looking back at these poems, I mean, I've read out of this book. Back in the day, I read out of it quite a bit. And I suspect this is true of most poets who read their work. You find a few that you know kind of work pretty well, and so you're always going to do those. Several that I've read so far, yeah, I've read those a bunch of times. But I'm going through this, and I'm looking for something that I didn't really read ever out loud. And they're bad poems, so just get ready. These are the ones that didn't make the cut. You know? It's called Luck Comes and She Goes. Jays and crows and magpies huddle and play and bathe outside my window by turns of weather through this winter, but only today concerns me, though to pretend in such a bird as a day orphaned from the flock of time is a fool's count. Still, I insist on a single day like a creationist fitting millennia of prehistory into a single work week. Call it the Ides of March, short and true as salt and pepper, the bag of weed, and a blued revolver on a hardwood table. A day without the fix of coffee, so contrary to its neighbors that I drive long as the gas holds out, down highways I've known for decades, stumped for a familiar landmark. Yesterday, some ghost, the surprise visit of that bear of a horseman, shot-up veteran, a sidearm beneath the tail of his shirt, to talk the mud and sand of America, the bald eagle down by Willow Springs, until I find the Izzard Cemetery, where pioneers were laid to rest by a particular sexton with the bones of Omaha killed in the Big Lakota fight. The puzzling billboard of Ali advertising, near as I can tell, courage, as if we could be anything but brave. The roadkill coon laid out on his back on the shoulder of the road like some pudgy spent lover. The truck stop's giant American flag snapping in the late winter wind to remind me I was born a citizen. Thank you. Yeah, I think computers existed when I started to write, I probably would have been a fiction writer. But you know, you have to type up, those are long drafts, and you had to do that on typewriter back in the day. And I've heard some poets I've heard the argument that a poet should never write anything that isn't part of of his experience, and that somehow it has to be factually true. I hate that idea. I can't believe anybody passes that around. I think, lying is often one way to get at the truth. And this is so I've got a couple here that I'll do that are kind of like short stories. This is called Cowboy Love. A poem's worth, there's an epigraph, the poem's worth the paper it's printed on, more or less. Sunlight pretty in her yellow sweater, blonde hair brushed 100 strokes, too often like her father, her mother likes to say, too smart for her own good. But the high winds of her life have twisted and frayed certainties her mother raised her with, and risk has yet to cost the price of playing it safe. She likes thongs and chunky shoes, has a nipple ring and a tattoo on her hip, something to pay the bills till she figures out what's next and where it's at. 23 or 4. She stops to think. It's a county seat town on a state highway, brick streets and a JUCO on the hill, rigs parked angled to the curb, an after-hours party on the front porch of a pair of gay stoners, the first night of spring. A droopy-lidded heeler stands on 2 legs on a tangle of tarp on a pickup box, tracking who comes and goes. Fog breathes like white magic in the halos of street lamps. Naked heads of wet trees hint of family madness. She keeps him talking easy as pie, gets his story in no time flat. A good hat pushed back on thin hair, a stiff pair of Levi's over tall boots. He's pushing 50. He's got a half-ass sales job, keeps him around town a few days, most weeks. A crooked grin that doesn't show his teeth and a granddad's glint behind his glasses. A grazing lease somewhere west and half interest in a string of pedigreed horses she'd like to see. With a sudden friend, the bargain we make is a venture in talk and time, travel across language and landscape, to name what we've thought but have yet to say, to look together at what we've only seen apart. They're running a back highway in a high-mile pickup he long ago named when a state pat stops them for a taillight, looks them over in a flashlight's unblinking beam. He can't hold but warns them, cuts them loose with a lecture on staying within the limit. The good taillight signals their way back into traffic that won't come this way for hours. Their talk fills the cab. She smells his scent, and in his scent some hint. When she sleeps, she speaks names he cannot know. She wakes in the milk light before sunup. Wind from his open side window blows her hair before her eyes. She's farther this way than she's ever been, a straight highway and a flat grassland without even the blue twinkle of some security light. A line of hills is a shadow far to her right. His eyes half moons in the last of the night. He says, "I've been thinking. I'm not so old, I'm not your father, and I'm not that married." She looks straight ahead to think. Behind them, the sun pops over skyline like morning toast, sending their joined shadows miles ahead on the vanishing highway. All right, I'll end with this poem. Now this one, on the other hand, is absolutely true. It's factual. I'll swear that everything in this poem happened just the way I present it here. Swear. Honest to God. On a Bible. Ship to the Americas. Little epigraph. The first half of life is spent saying hello. Every good choice, no less than bad, sets up hard as a brick until choices stack up yards high into hard walls of blessings. Family, friends, what the community calls position, mortared by habit and ambition until we seem only inmates taking our exercise in this narrow space of our own making. Saints among sinners, we uniformly shamble to the cadence of a smoker's cough on knees blown out in sport. On Visitor's Day, the young wonder at the distance imposed between us. Can't understand why Daddy's locked up in this place. Daddy's doing time, though nobody knows his crime. Preacher's hunkered down along the wall, getting some winter sun on his pale face, working the kinks out of his stiffened hands with the rest of us. He says, "Looky here, this ain't right. I'm an innocent man. I didn't do nothing to deserve this. Old timers look away, smiles playing their lips like banjos. It comes with the territory, salesman says. I made a good living. I got 3 daughters on the outside I raised proper. I paid my taxes, didn't cheat on my wife. We're bored, already wondering what's on TV. The sun sets pale behind the wall. He considers, this ain't bad, like what time done to mom and pop. Rats running all hours beneath the roof, no Novocaine or ether and a black rotten tooth. Folks just 2 old fools waiting it out, seeing it through. Cold, we button collar buttons on our faded blues with swelling fingers, pull our numbered denim jackets tight around our shoulders. Our frosted breath balloons. Our words might just as well be icicles. Counterfeiter opines, it's the way people at all those straight jobs I kept for cover often acted cordial, but were never truly pleasant. Night sky narrows above, cut by walls we built to a grave shape. Hell, we're the lucky ones, Gambler says. Our numbers could have been up years ago. Look at the run we've had. Sure, the odds are long against us now, but maybe there's still a chance. We drag our arms across runny noses. Freezing snot on worn sleeves refracts the starlight. Bright star, get me away from this cold ground. Get me a fast car to some hot sun town. Find me a stack of cash in my chrome-plated 45. A traveling redhead who don't know the math. Lord, fly my righteous ass out of here and set it down by a river of cold beer. Thanks, everybody. Here's it. If you got any questions for Scott, now's a good time to ask him, I guess, is what's going on.
And JV will answer them. So
Yeah, you ask Scott and I'll answer.
If you know any questions, we can talk for 15 minutes.
Where do you live in Stanton County?
The homestead's a couple miles north.
North?
Of 57.
Okay.
I don't live in Stanton County.
I know.
Next one over.
Next one.
Right. So it's in the neighborhood.
Pretty close.
How long have you been writing?
I mean, you're young, man.
Comes from breakups in high school.
Is that where that
Yeah,
started?
and you gotta craft a note. And you just gotta craft that thing and just, you know.
Are you gonna be nasty in the note, or are you gonna be like you're breaking up, or you're breaking up with somebody else?
I'm being broken up with, so you gotta craft that note. You got one chance that they're gonna listen to you. And they're gonna ignore you for the rest of your life.
Right. So it's a note of desperation.
In retrospect, you know. And what do you think?
I just couldn't find an honest way to make a living.
So it's crooked.
Probably, I don't know. Yeah. Well, thanks for anything, anybody, you all good? Thanks for coming
Thanks for
out,
coming.
folks. Yeah, I appreciate it. Oh, my Scott's book's up here.